shall we get started? How many people do you expect in the class?
So
We have got 42 people.
42 people.
So I hope some more people might be joining, or is this the typical, the average attendance?
So we had an exam just half an hour back. So I
Mhm.
think everybody would be joining in some time.
Yes, people are recuperating post-exam.
Yeah.
All right, right. But just so, any coordination difficulties? Because I and Aditi, we are coordinating this program as well. So any other issues that you all are facing?
So this is Amit. I just wanted to highlight. I think the only thing which I've noticed in this program, I
Mm-hmm.
think there were a couple of weekend which were missed, like Saturday. We didn't have the class, and
Okay.
two to three programs are rushed into it. Like we have three modules running at the same time, and then we have an exam. So that is the only piece which I find not right, because three module at the same time, and then we have a Thursday class, which is another problem because most of the people are working. Rest everything is fine.
Got it. Got it. I think, one, let me first talk about the Thursday problem. The problem with that is, I think we did a survey. I actually
Yes, we have.
asked Gaurav to conduct a survey and check with you. Means one of the other options, and I can tell you most of the other programs we run three sessions on either a Saturday or a Sunday. We don't have a session on Thursdays. Frankly, for even us, it's a big pain. But
Yeah.
while we floated the idea, means I would have personally preferred that we do three sessions on Saturday or Sunday, rather than doing two sessions on a weekend and then doing one on a Sunday.
And that's what
Sir,
I
the
preferred. In fact, in the survey also, most of them have chosen Saturday, Sunday, but I think some of them have also chosen Thursday.
So there
Right.
were
So we
only two
we we
options,
go
Wednesday and
so
Thursday.
we go
sir,
by
the
what the majority.
Sir,
So, Professor, yeah.
the options that were given were either Thursday or Sunday or Saturday. They never asked who has a problem with Thursday, or because I work on weekends as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I have requested my company to let me attend the first half of Saturdays. But now they've also asked Thursday, so it becomes very, very difficult to uh, attend these classes.
So any suggestions on how to address this? Because either we do three sessions on Saturday or two sessions on Saturday, one session on Thursday.
So,
The
Professor,
second option is still better, sir, because three sessions on Saturday it gets very tedious.
Means,
Professor,
Mayank, just on that, most of our programs we do three sessions on Saturday.
Oh,
so
I mean,
we
that's
with all
This is the only program that I'm coordinating where we are doing two sessions on Saturday, because every session, every time that you do a program, there's a boot time,
okay.
right? You have to program for that. Means every time that you have to do a 75-minute or session on Thursday, it takes about another 15 minutes. Before that, you have to get in that mood. You have to log in your on your laptop and so on. But once you are done, I know three sessions for it becomes a bit difficult. That
We had certain in initial classes we did have certain Saturdays in which we had three sessions. The
Mhm.
third session it gets very we have, like drained out of the
So
energy.
up to you. But what I'm saying is I can see even here that there's a divergence of opinion.
Mhm.
But if you all want, I would leave it to you all to figure it out. Give us one definite answer. What do you all want, right?
And so,
sir,
I would request if we can have a survey only on Saturday, three classes once again, because I am opting for Saturday.
So
And
Amit, I would
Do it
rather suggest
internally.
that why don't
Sir, we'll do it
you all
internally and
do a
let you
survey
know.
and give us an answer.
So,
We'll do it
Professor, so what
internally.
happened? We had a couple of I think 2 or 3 Saturdays. We have three classes. So morning 10:30 to almost 150, 120, almost sometimes it's 120, like two classes, continuous classes. The intake, because there are a whole lot of modules which which have a deep knowledge. We need to go through calculations, understanding a new perspective. After that, a very short period, half an hour for lunch, and then again go to the third module, third class. And moreover, the third class happened to be from a different module.
Mhm.
So now the problem was used to happen again from a different module, which have a different kind of a subject, different perspective altogether. For us, some of the people in this batch, of course, they are between 30s, and people like some of us which are kind of a 40 plus. For us it would have been a little bit stressful kind of a, and for us the intake capacity, because we have been a working professional and not a student, a regular college student, so it gone a little bit overwhelming. And actually there was a poll, the majority people came up with it's really got a problematic for them to intake the whatever the happening in the third class. So
Got it.
overall from the group, people reached out to the coordinator. Initially Mithila was there, and then the Gaurav from the office was there.
Right.
And then there was an overall poll came up. So of course Thursday evening is not our first choice, but to complete the course module, they said, "No, you guys need to do. Thursday is not our choice." But at the same time, doing a 3 classes in a Saturday, uh, the problem was that, sir.
Totally, I understand, Gautam, and that's where, when Amit was giving his perspective, I again said that, uh, this word is all about compromises. We never get the perfect solution. So the question is, what do we compromise with? Either 3 sessions, or the other problem is, if you stretch the program over 1 year, 1.5 year, we also need a certificate in time. If you look at our brochure, we said that, okay, we'll finish the program in about a year. And that was the intent, that typically in a week, because there are sometimes, we'll miss session for some reasons. There are holidays, vacations, etc., etc. While we try not to miss it from our side, but again, there are going to be some issues, coordination issues. The faculty who is scheduled to take a session on Sunday, even if one person or two-person is absent from your side, you all have access to the recording. But if the faculty, I have to take a session on Sunday, Saturday, and I fall ill on Friday evening, we do try to juggle things a bit. But the point is that, unless we do 3 sessions a week, and the other issue that, while we do understand this whole idea of juggling across modules, fortunately or unfortunately, the life of we are at least working on different marketing topics. When I was in an MBA class, and and when we teach, we might have one session in marketing, another in finance, a third in operations, and it is crazy, right? It's crazy for the students, but we also understand that, it does have, while you move, it also tests our nimbleness, it also tests our agility. So I do not have the right solution, but as I said, I would respect your decision, whatever you all tell us, but we need a single solution, whether it comes from, whether it aligns with what Gautam is saying, or whether it aligns with what Amit is saying. But we need to have one, whether you all go by majority, and I can conduct a poll or a survey, but I think, a better approach is that we arrive at some kind of consensus. We do try to avoid sessions on Thursday, frankly, as few as possible. We'll try to manage things with over the weekends itself, but let's see. All right. Sukhdev, you have a question, your hand is raised.
Sir,
Good
the
morning.
poll
Good
that
morning,
you
sir. Yeah. Continue. Sanjay ji,
sir, the
bolo.
poll that you plan to have done.
No polls from my
No
side.
polls? Okay. Then I'll
You all give a consensus. Do we have a class representative?
It's usually Gautam or Mayank.
So between the two of you, or three of you all decide.
Sir, we already
आप
have
लोग जो
this.
मेल डालोगे वो हम accept करके I'll try to work around the schedule on those notes. Poll नहीं करेंगे. Poll becomes, it divides the class.
Okay, sir, we'll do it at
Right.
our end, and we'll let you know.
Right, man?
Sure, sir.
So you all decide whatever you all decide, because if we do a poll, half of the people will be unhappy. So I don't want to be responsible for that unhappiness. I would rather want Mayank or Sanjay or Gautam or Amit to be responsible for that unhappiness and to convince others.
Sir,
Right?
we'll take the grant and we'll let you know about it.
Sure. All right. So Sukhdev, you had a point, or?
Yeah, sir, I just had a request, sir. Please don't, put exams in 7 days gap, sir. It is
Are these people asking you all tough questions?
Actually, yes, sir. Actually.
Let me force them to
Tricky
give you
one.
all easy papers.
Quite tricky ones.
It's a tricky one. So has anybody failed?
No, sir.
फिर क्या फिर क्यों चिंता कर रहे
सर आज मैं पक्का फेल होने वाला हूँ सर।
हो?
आज जो
आज
सवेरे दिया उसमें 100% फेल है।
which subject was this?
Same.
Data-driven marketing.
राजेश
Yes, sir.
Right, sir. Right. It's enough.
वो मुझे भी फेल कर देगा तो let me see. I'll get back to you. So one question that we have is we'll try. So I've taken note of this. We'll try to schedule.
I'm sorry to.
Yes, Riddhi, please go ahead.
It's not to do anything with the professor. He's been very diligent enough. In fact, he has extended a lot of classes to give us right teaching. The only thing which has probably gone out for us is probably it's become too technical for the marketing professionals. It's
Got
very
it.
financial side, very mathematical side, which probably we are not privy to the formulas and such kind of understanding where we really get into those technological understanding of life, right? So it's
Got it.
definitely nothing to do with the professor. His techniques of teaching is absolutely fair. In fact, he's been one of those who has extended classes beyond more than once or twice. It's just that probably the module could be little easen out for the people like us.
Right.
That request, and hence we feel the exams. And again, exam sets are, it's like A, you can write in a cursive letter, A, you can write it in a straight letter, and all of those, So when the questions are really asked in those manner, we really get tricked, that this is right or that is right. So that's where we are coming from. But yeah, siding to everybody, it was a difficult one, but just look at the module, probably that could ease out for us.
Got it.
But
So
yeah,
just
nothing against the professor.
right. No, I think Rajesh. If once you meet him, you would realize he is the gentlest of soul.
Absolutely.
Right,
I
a
second
very
doubt about that.
conscientious person, a
No
good
doubt.
friend. He is highly sincere, but he's also
Very
he
passionate.
says he
With
says
And
that
promptly
there's
replies
notes
to
also.
mail, sir.
Very,
Promptly
very good
replies to
notes he
mails.
made.
yes. So
Promptly replies to mail, sir.
all I think most of us do try to, and he's quite sincere
He
that
is.
way. But
He is.
the only thing is he can be Rajesh is also very. He wants to make sure that he will stretch people out.
Yes.
So he says that if people have learned a little bit, they should know that subject, right? So take it in the spirit. I understand your concerns, Riddhi, but if he's talking about loyalty programs or he's talking about data analytics, etc., we can't. When we talk about qualitative side of marketing, I think we are more malleable, more flexible because there is no algorithm, there is no syntax. But when we talk about the more quantitative side, data analytics side, then it becomes a bit of problem. But take it in the spirit that where you all have been exposed to it. Some of you who are interested, it gives you all an exposure and a chance and maybe an opportunity to have a first exposure. And then I frankly feel that this most of what we learn in a class, it's just an exposure. If we want to learn something, and I have learned a lot of things not in a formal classroom, but outside the classroom, I would simply go do Google search, go to YouTube videos, how to do this. So whatever, I think even he has taught, if you could simply go to a YouTube video, search for a YouTube video, and you'll find all the resources.
Yes. Yes.
On the exam part, don't worry about that, right? So that would be my short answer.
Just
Right?
to add one thing to it, if you could get the study material that we're getting, like the case studies and everything, and if you can get the topics which would be covered in the session beforehand, so we would go through the definitions and everything, so that we'll be able to get.
But it doesn't I think Gaurav typically shares it.
It's just the topics that we don't know. So like the
For example,
topic.
today we are going to discuss this case on Red Bull, and I was actually bothered. I'm still bothered. We haven't started the case discussion, and the case runs into about 20 pages, though you have to read the first 10 pages. And yesterday I was mortified. I was not sure whether people would have access, and I called up Gaurav. I said, "Yaar, share to kar diya. And can you please send everybody a reminder that they have to read this case?"
We have got the email, sir, and we have
we-
the study material as well.
We got
Alright.
that.
But
Right,
we
but
have not studied, sir.
okay. So
We have
I
not
knew
studied.
that, but what we'll do is I'll give you all about 15 minutes to read the case, because unless you read the case, we can't do any justice to that, right? So shall we start today's
Yes,
session?
sir. Yes, sir.
Right, I've taken note of your concerns. One is uh, about the scheduling part, and as profs like to do, I have again spun the problem and sent it back to you, right? So you gave me a problem, and I said, okay, why don't you all address this? So the monkey is not on my head. Please address the scheduling problem. Let me know. I'll go by what you all say, right? To the extent possible. I've taken a note of the module part. Let me see. I think we are already done. We are planning to graduate the batch in August,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
right? So I'll check the schedule with Gaurav. To the extent possible, I'll see what can we do,
Thank you.
right?
So the
The
convocation
third,
dates are 26th and 29th
yes,
August.
yes. We try to. I have tried. I think there was some. I made sure that it aligns a bit with the weekend also, so that if you all want, you all can visit places, right? So we'll get some communication closure to the date. Correct. The other question that y'all had about scheduling of the exam, let me check, so that we don't have to. There should be at least a week's gap between the after that the when the module finishes and when you all have an exam. But I can tell
2 weeks,
you,
sir.
it
Sir,
doesn't
two
help.
weeks.
2 weeks.
Sir. Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
Mr. Mukherjee, I can tell you the way it works best is that the exam happens as soon as the module finishes. Otherwise, it's out of mind, out of sight.
Right,
But
sir.
it's okay.
Yes,
It's
sir.
okay, but still, these are
I'll-
very abstract topics, sir. 2 weeks would be fine. And you
Okay.
have got time, sir, to schedule that.
Sir,
Right.
sir, at
Yes.
least my and some of our batchmates, I'll say especially at least 10, 12 people whom I am pretty in touch with almost, quite frequently. Our experience is we felt like always a group assignment is much better than there's a 30 minutes, a fast question exam kind of a thing. One, sometimes we get a time problem. Sometimes there are, maybe I have, not clear with the idea of that particular topic and all. But we always felt when it's a group assignment, because some of the exams we have given group assignments, and it helped our understanding the module much better, the knowledge, working together with people around 6, 7 people or 8 people. It always helped us in that way.
Got it. Got it. So let me check on that. So I'll encourage faculty members to appear for or to set a group, more of a group assignment. The only problem with the group assignment is that there's another associated problem, that of free riding.
So sorry, sir.
Free
Is
riding.
free riding,
Free
Right, sir.
riding, bola.
You're right, sir.
Yeah.
right? So
matlab, ke-
so
sir,
in a
sir,
yes, go ahead, go ahead.
Professor Saripali was actually had set a particular percentage of the marks from the group assignment. That also can be done, sir. Means you
Yeah,
can
combination of group
combination.
assignment exam.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So do we have a class representative, formal class representative?
Not as such, kind of
But
a.
anybody, can you all compile the list of your
Yeah, we'll do that.
concerns and drop me an email?
Yes,
Sure,
sir.
sir.
We'll
Yeah,
do that.
sure.
We'll do that.
Right. I'm sharing my email. You also copy to Gautam. Right. I just typed my email ID in the chat box.
Right, sir. Received.
Right. So drop me an email. My only worry is
It
many
is there,
times
sir. We have already.
the mails go in the spam box. I'll check. So drop me an email with the concerns, so that it's easy for me to act on these. Correct. I'll take the last question. The time is precious. So from Vishakha. Vishakha, your time.
Yes, sir. So no question as such. I was just saying that we are discussing a lot of subjective things. Half of the class who are not discussing or saying anything might feel otherwise. So, and I think it's been half of the module which is done until now, and whatever has been the set course and the future course is also set right now. I think most of us would also like to go and or abide by it. So it's all subjective, I would say, just that
I
point.
totally agree. I totally
Opinion.
agree. But I would also suggest that, if there are any, we can always improve things,
Yes, sir.
right? So let's see if there are any worthwhile suggestions. And uh, I'm not assuring that we'll act on each of these. But if I find something, and it's also because, currently we are already towards April end.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have maybe about 2 months, 3 months time. But whatever, if there are any good suggestions, it's not only benefit this batch, but future batches as well.
Yes, sir. Thank
Sir,
you.
actually, the debate will go on because whatever has been pointed out, it's not that 100% of the people will always agree. Like, I always feel that after a course is over, I'll get done with the exam or the assignment because I can focus on the next module properly.
Exactly.
So
That's what I
it
said.
is like that. Yeah, so that is why the proposals that we will be keeping before you also, you can assure that it's maybe, it doesn't have the consent of the 100%, I
Right.
mean, population, so it is just a suggestion. So
I know,
it's
I
like
know, I know, I know. And that is what I said, that, whether it was Saturday or Thursday, I know it's going to be a 50-50. Whether it's an exam immediately or exam after 2 weeks, it's going to be 50-50. So in my experience, it always works that way. And that is why I threw the onus on you, right, to give me one answer. All right. Anyway, but let's see if we can, if there are other issues which is common, and we'll come back to you before we implement any changes. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.
All right, guys. So let's talk a little bit. I typically offer two modules. One is on the sports side, sports marketing, event marketing, and the other on pricing. Pricing will start maybe from next month. I think it's already in the timetable. But today we'll talk a little bit about sports marketing. I offer a course on sports marketing. So let me just introduce myself. My name is Sanjeev. I think some of you I might have met at the time of the inauguration of the program. I and Aditya, both of us are coordinating this program. But I didn't start my career as an academic. My first training was as an engineer. I joined Indian Railways at the age of 17, was trained by them as a mechanical engineer. I joined the Indian Railway Service of Mechanical Engineers at the age of 21. Worked with them for close to 7 years, and primarily in in different work profiles, whether it was maintenance of locomotives or running of crew management or disaster management or procurement of materials. Smallest team was about 300. The biggest team that I managed was about 3,000. After 6-7 years, I said, let me do something else. So I did my PhD in the another IIM in Ahmedabad. And then I said I wanted to get into marketing, but I'd never done any marketing. So I consulted Procter and Gamble for a couple of years uh, in different domains, primarily new product development and pricing. And since then I returned back to academics. I taught at Ahmedabad for close to 4-5 years, and then I've been here at Indore for now about close to 5-6 years. I teach courses in pricing. I teach courses in sports marketing. That's another elective that I offer. And I offer another course on strategic marketing. So these are the three things that I offer to my MBA crowd. My research is primarily in consumer behavior. I look at an area which is called numeral cognition. So I try to make sense of how does the human brain make sense of numbers. Right? So great to have you all here. Now, another aspect of this module, it's a short module, but I love teaching through cases. Now, one problem with the cases is they need some work from your side, right? Now, why I love the cases is that, at this level, we do not, I don't like to use PPTs. At times, I might have to use a PPT. I absolutely hate using a PPT. So for introductory concepts, it's okay. But the idea behind the cases is that when we discuss a case, whatever we have learned, we apply it to a certain situation. And so either I might have learned the concept, I apply it to a situation, or even if I look at a situation, I could come up with abstract from it, the learnings, and then that becomes a more hardwired learning in our brain. Right? So definitely when we look at the Red Bull case, I think, while we might be talking about sports sponsorship, etc., while it might be a bit hazy, but I think, we'll do justice to it if we read the case, and then we'll see how we apply those concepts. Anybody here who has got some understanding or some exposure to sports business?
Yes, sir. Recently we have taken sponsorship for IPL for hire.
Okay. So Shivan, which company are you working for?
I'm in hire appliances.
Okay, hire appliances. So have you dealt with those decisions, or
Yeah, like FCTs and all, what kind of value add we are getting, and all those, how much it will be the FCT cost, value add cost, and all those things. Yes, I was into it. Prior to this, I was with Group M also, so media planning business, where I have to
Correct.
deal with clients regarding this sport business and all.
Great, great. So I think, that perspective will be quite useful today and in the next few sessions. So maybe you can also help us understand some of that. Like Sakshi?
Yes, so in my last job in London, I've handled sponsorships with Manchester United for football and
Mhm.
Formula One racing and Milwaukee racing. So since I was working with Gulf Oil International, so we basically used to have sponsorship for all of these.
All right. And you are involved in all these decisions?
Yes, sir.
All right. Great. So I think, the idea is that the two of you are more experienced, so y'all might have some insight. So we'll try to provide the fundamental, but please chip in whenever y'all feel that, y'all can share some knowledge, right? So let me share a PowerPoint. Right. So when we talk about sports and marketing, we realized that last year, I'm talking of 2023, the entire sports marketing that generated about 15,000 crores CRs. And this is about 10% of the entire Indian ad revenue. And that's a huge number. So if we are to talk about marketing for the future, we cannot forget what's happening on the sports side. Sunshine industry. Word over, if you look at the growth, even in US, it's in sports industry, it's more saturated. There, the growths are about 3%, 4%. In India, the CAGR growth rate has been about close to 8%, 10% since last 7, 8 years. And the good part is that it is expected to continue growing, whether it's IPL or most of the other leagues, whether it's the Kabaddi League or some other league, as we can see that the ad revenues, the sponsorship revenues, everything is leapfrogging. There's high opportunities for growth. We are possibly, in terms of demographics, we are at the right place. We have got a sizable youth segment and who are interested in sports. Word over, India has lagged a bit, but word over, it's a multi-billion-dollar global industry. It supports multiple other industries, and we have a captive and dedicated author. I don't know, Shivan is there from Group M, but often people they browse. Even if you're watching something, people often they switch from one channel to the other channel. Sports is something when they do not want to be disturbed. Nobody browses when there's a live action happening. Even if it's an ad, you might live with that. But most of the other things, people would say they would get bored. They would say, okay, let me browse something else and come back. It is an audience by invitation. For most of the other things, you do not have a live audience. People watch a recorded program. They can watch it at any point of time. They can go to Amazon Prime. They can go to Netflix. But sports, if there is a match, an IPL match that is happening today evening, if there's a Manchester United, Manchester City match that's happening, you can rest assured that people would be there in front of a TV set. or their screens. And therefore that time becomes very valuable for an advertiser. When we talk of sports, we need to make sure that there are these two different terms. One is marketing through sports, and the other is marketing of sports. All right. So when we talk of marketing through sports, when we use this word sports marketing, it spans both these terms. So when we talk of marketing through sports or sports events, brands are the ones that are using sports to achieve their marketing objective. So brands such as whether it's Haier or whether it's Sony or whether it's any other brand, they're looking at how can I use or leverage sports to create an equity for me. They can do it through presence around stadium. They can do it through endorsement using sports celebrities. They can even use sponsorships. And we'll deep dive into some of these at least. When I'm talking of marketing of sports or sports events, it spans multiple things. It is about marketing of the event. It is marketing to teams or athletes. How do I become more attractive for anybody who would like to enter? So unless IPL does a good job, and they want to expand, they will not have interested people who want to buy a franchise. I want to get a good coverage, broadcasting coverage, because once I get a good coverage, the ad revenues go up, the value of the entity goes up. I want to reach out to spectators, sports consumers, because I want to fill the stadia. I want to have a high viewership on the TV. I want to market myself to corporates, potential sponsors, and obviously I want to make sure that my ad revenues goes up. The bidding for the ad right goes for the broadcasting right goes up, and therefore I have to make sure that I communicate that to the broadcasters. So we have hardly, we keep this as a mini module. So we'll talk a little bit about sports sponsorship, a little bit about leagues, a little bit about athlete management, a bit on the distribution of sports. Let's look at this. Byju's, they went into sponsoring FIFA World Cup. Why did they go into FIFA World Cup sponsorship?
Because it's been lagged by the younger generation who are probably their audience also. The guys who opt for their courses, online courses, and also those young generation basically are into football and also. That's why they wanted to target those. That's why they have taken those sponsorship. But that cost them a fortune.
But the question is also, though that's a target audience, but who are the people actually paying for these courses? Their parents. They are also the
Yes.
people.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that.
There's been a debate on this also.
Yeah, so I totally agree with that, Gautam, that people, while we are talking of consumers, but a person who pays is the parent. Are we really able to reach out to the parents by this approach? So
soccer is a game that is loved by everybody, rags to riches, and it will appeal to everybody, sir. Education is for all, so you can the.
So I hope even the parents are watching it.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
the second most commonly watched and played sport in India after cricket, I would say.
Right.
India, no, sir. India, I fully disagree to it. India, it is not that. My grandfather was a player of Mohun Bagan. What is there in the soccer, this one, what kind of things happen. So it is not like it is never going to happen. Maybe it is going to happen. Why to keep a negative feeling for that? But it is not that at all. We are not sync with what the dunya thinks about this game.
Football is basically in India is like restricted to your eastern part of the country and the southern part, including Goa, where this sport is popular. Is popular than the cricket also. But in northern part and western part of the country, the parents probably are not that involved as they are involved in cricket.
I think that has also been changed. If you look at the younger
It is not
cohort.
the point and forum to discuss on that.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I would disagree slightly. Younger crowd, as I see my own observation, and I since I run a course on sports where I see that, and I talk to people. Some of them, they are getting more attracted towards football rather than cricket. The younger cohort. A lot of, if you look
Yes,
at
sir.
coaching.
Now it is getting more appeal from the Indian, actually the youth basically.
So the question
Yeah.
is, if Mayank, like it's not about of course, it's one of the most popular, soccer is in India, like since the time of Pele when India visited India pre-independence also. Question is not that. Question is, in what cost they have taken the sponsorship.
Exactly.
That is the one of the biggest point. And another point is, again, the TG segment. The people who are taking admission are the students. The people who are actually paying for the course, bearing will be their parents. So dividing that, the analysis, the debate is what I was trying to understand that, of course, sir will give the best,
No, I won't give the best answer, but I was just trying to understand from y'all. But
I was trying to say that Baiju at that time was trying to expand to the other countries also. And FIFA being a very popular sports, and I mean, in the considering everything, it is the most popular sport. So that would have helped them in getting those eyeballs and everything.
Right.
So I think
that's what I also mean, sir.
Yeah. So what happened at this time was that Byju's, as Mank says, had an ambition to become a global player.
Right.
And this business works again on signaling to the market that you're a big company because you want a lot of VCs to come and invest because you are burning cash. The model was not really profitable.
Right.
And therefore, FIFA World Cup, if you look at this, their name would be aired word over and they do not have a presence. And therefore, to some of us, it might look like a foolish strategy because it's not only India, but it's about so many other countries and nobody has heard. So what they were trying to do is, one is it's a bit of signaling. You are signaling to the market that we are big, we are huge. You are buying the prestige that we have the power, we have the money to sponsor FIFA, and everybody, what you're working at is that only good brands sponsor FIFA, and therefore we are a good brand. That's one. The other is they also had ambitions and they were trying to set up Baiju's educational services, etc., even in other countries, in US, in Europe. And they said it's going to be useful, but they underestimated the market and they realized they were spreading themselves too thin. And then they exited.
Samir have asked a question on the message.
The activity contribute to our branding efforts by helping the brand raise awareness.
It does. So Samir, it does increase the brand awareness. When we talk about branding has got primarily, I look at it from two different lenses. When I talk of branding, I talk about brand awareness, and the other is about brand association. So brand awareness is that more people should know my name. And the other is the brand association, that people should develop a certain perception about the brand. So when I talk about a Red Bull, people draw a meaning. Some of us might be aware, some of us might not be aware. But if you are aware, what does that brand signify? So branding is a bit about this, and the first element is obviously that brand awareness, and for that, many firms, and whether it was I don't know how many of you recollect a brand such as Micromax, and that in 2000 somewhere about 10, 12, etc. They were sponsoring BCCI, and they were using the same strategy. They said, okay, BCCI, it might not, given it's a generic sports and everybody is exposed to that, they said, okay, we'll sponsor cricket, and therefore we suddenly get a lot of eyeballs. So it's a good strategy if you want a mass awareness. Right. Right. Can also talk about ambush marketing. While we have sponsorship as one side, there are brands that will also ambush you. If we have time, we'll discuss a little bit of that.
We have done that actually long time back, 15 years back, sir. I was been part of that ambush marketing.
Right.
In sports.
Look at Hero. They struck a 250 CR deal with Tiger Woods. Now, I'm often amazed, and I've talked to some fairly intelligent people who have been heading big firms. So once I met the VP of Coke, and this was somewhere about 2008, 2010, when Pepsi had acquired the rights of IPL. And I think Pepsi got it for 485 CRs or something, a 5-year right. And I was talking to the VP of Coke India, and I asked him that was he feeling a bit unhappy that they didn't get the rights. So he said, no, uh, we didn't. He simply said they overbid. So I asked him, what do you think is the fair bid? He said, we had bid somewhere about 350 CRs. So I asked him, just for my curiosity, how did you arrive at that number? This was a person, they crib about when they hire a summer intern, they take hours of the organization time to figure out whether the money that they should be paying to a summer intern should be 30,000 or 35,000 or 40,000. And when I asked him that, okay, how did you arrive at that number of 300 or 350 CR? He said we had an analyst who had populated a Excel sheet, and they had made all these numbers and they gave it to us. So I said, okay, did you check the assumptions? He said, no. Imagine somebody deciding whether to invest 350 CRs just based on an analyst spreadsheet without questioning any of this. But that's also because we do not understand the sports business, we do not understand the art and science behind it. But it's not rocket science. Right? We'll talk a little bit about leagues. Those leagues are a big part of sports business. We might not have time about looking at all these participation sports. We might talk a little bit about sports infra if you have time. Right? What's so special to sports marketing? The same we have been talking about the 4 P's of marketing. So there is the sports product, which is intangible, experiential, and subjective. It is inconsistent and it is unpredictable. That's why it is so much fun. If sports was predictable, nobody would watch it. We watch it just because there has to be some degree of uncertainty. We do not have a control over outcome. We do not watch. If you look at the viewership of Indian cricket, if you are getting, say, Indian cricket team playing against Australia, England, you would have a fairly large viewership. If India is playing Zimbabwe or Ireland or some other country, the viewership drops. You're looking at a good competition. You are also, while you want your home team to win, you want the home team or your favorite team to win in a tough competition. Well, they just escape and then they beat the other team. These are the matches. So this is, I think, an image from the Bangladesh England match when Bangladesh beat England for the first time. It's real time, perishable, produced and consumed simultaneously. Nobody loves watching a recording. Sports has to be consumed in real time. That's the fun. So many people lined up to watch this race, and it ended in an anticlimax. So Usain Bolt didn't complete this race, and this was his last race. It evokes strong emotions, publicly consumed, collectively experienced. We watch it. Those who watch sport, they love to watch it along with others. It's no fun watching it all alone. It needs a bit of competition, a bit of cooperation. The matches have to be held, and both the parties, the tournament organizer, they have to cooperate with each of the teams to organize the event. But then on the field, we compete. Off the field, we cooperate. So the product, pricing becomes a key challenge. How do we arrive at the price of a ticket? Boxing match, finals, etc. Some of them, the ticket prices can get into thousands of dollars. A single event that lasts about 1.5, 2 hours. The World Heavyweight Boxing Championship. These are super expensive. They would do it at an exotic location, and the ticket prices are very, very expensive because it happens maybe once in 3 years, 4 years. Even for other events, I need to make sure that I optimize the ticket prices without offending the fans. If Manchester United, Manchester City, Real Madrid, they increase the price of the tickets, the fans, they are offended. And then the person, they have to stand for re-election. And the fans are the ones who are going, the members are the ones who are going to vote for them, and they don't like it. So it's a tightrope. Place, we might talk a little bit about place. Where do we organize the sports, and what are the challenges in organizing sports? How do we create infrastructure? Promotion. So this is more about a conventional promotions, but we do need to have objectives behind when we are marketing a sport. What kind of communication do I have with my fans? What is it that they like? Communication has changed. I don't know. Anybody remembers this campaign by IPL called Jumping Japan?
Yes, sir.
We had a Farah Khan coming. Any guess why did they start that campaign? What did a Farah Khan have to do with an IPL? Any guess? No idea. So what they had done, what IPL did, they realized that they were getting a lot of male audience. They were not getting the female audience. And they said, if we have to sustain, we need to make sure, because their target segment was the youth. And the youth, if you have a male who's coming and their lady friends, female friends, some of them are not coming to the stadium. Some of them, they say, okay, it's no fun, because if they don't enjoy sports, and they had packages as sports plus entertainment, they would rather watch a movie than go to a sports. So they said, we have to make it entertainment. We have to make ourselves understandable to the female crowd. We have to get them interested. And they said, we have to actively market ourselves to the female demographics. And they said, let's do a campaign where we make sure that we reach out to the females. And that is when they said, and the next season, in that season itself, the attendance in front of the TV and in the stadia, it jumped up for the ladies.
Right.
So most of these, when they suffered from all these match fixing, they had another solution. So they said, they talked about something else. They talked about why sports is in our blood, why some people cannot destroy sports, right? So this is just a very introduction, right? I thought because some of you would be wondering, where do we fit it? So I thought let's fit it. Let's talk a little bit about sports. But what we can do is we'll jump into the Red Bull case. You all have not read the case.
So couldn't manage it.
The glass
All right,
door.
all right. So Dev, you have a question?
No, sir, I just wanted to extend what you said in an interview in Kirloskar, especially in Koel, they would give you higher points if you were a sportsman. Very high points.
All right.
Yeah. If you say something nonsense also, and if you are a sportsman, they will take you. Sir. It's like that.
You worked for Koel for some time?
Yeah, I had worked for Koel for 8 years. Sir.
Right. I purchased a lot of stuff from them.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Kirloskar Oil Engines Limited.
Yeah, crazy company. Sir.
Right. So I purchased a lot of stuff for diesel locomotives when I was working for railways.
They are into manufacturing a diesel locomotive with Belgian this one. They are into manufacturing some tank engines also now.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do one thing. The Red Bull case is with you, right? Can you all take about 15 minutes? So right now in my clock, it's 11:20. Can you all take 15 minutes? I'll check with you all after around 10, 15 minutes. But the key question that we have is, and let me explain to the question. So the case has got, it's a bit longish. I wish I could have given you all a shorter case. But the entire premise of the case is we go back. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Formula One. Now, the case is about Formula One. The case talks about Red Bull in, somewhere about 2004-5. We are talking about this. Red Bull was a brand, a big brand, but not as big as today. And the case looks at Red Bull is wondering. They have had an opportunity. They have had some association with a team called Sauber. And then they had been sponsoring that. But they have had some aspirations to own a Formula One team. And then they have this opportunity because there is a team called Jaguar. The team Jaguar is up for sale. So the question for Red Bull is, shall we continue sponsorship of Sauber, or shall we do sponsorship even with, let's say, a Jaguar? Option 1. Option 2, shall we buy Jaguar team and rebrand it as a Red Bull team? Option 3, that is not given in the case, and that is, why should I invest so much money in doing all this, a Formula One, etc.? Why can't I simply do a typical advertising? So spend money. Not every team is in sponsorship. A lot of brands, they use a strategy where they use a TV commercial. So I could use social media. I do not need to have use sports, right? So read the case. You can leave some part of the case, but make sure that you focus on the partnership between, or the discussion where they talk about the association between Red Bull and Sauber, and then the question about whether Red Bull should get into buying of Jaguar or sponsorship of Jaguar. There are 3 or 4 exhibits. You can take a look at it. Otherwise, we'll look at them together. All right.
Sure, sir.
So I'm here, but I might, if you all can read this case, and you all can also use this as a sort of a mini break. So between the 2 sessions, we have a 15-minute break. So use it as a break, use it for reading this case, and we'll connect in about 15-20 minutes. All right.
Yes.
So I'm just switching off my video and the audio. All right.
Okay, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Hello? Hello?
हाँ
Guys, are we good to start?
Yes, sir.
Is everyone ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Professor.
All right. So let me do one thing. Let me share a screen, and what we'll do is can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
So what
Session 2 ready case.
so what I do is I typically use this as a scratch pad. Whatever we discuss will make all the notes here, and then I share it. I'll convert it to a PDF file, and then I share it at the end of the class with Gaurav, and Gaurav will share it with all of you. So this becomes a note for the session as well. Right? So the question that I would let's start with. What is it that we are discussing here? What's the key question for Red Bull? What is the dilemma that Red Bull is facing?
Sir, to expand globally?
To invest or not
At
to
this
invest?
stage, they are already a global brand.
The question is whether they would still go ahead with the sponsorship or whether they should own a Formula One team, which will again cost them the fortune.
So one is whether to acquire a team, possibly Jaguar,
Ford Motors never happened.
or to sponsor of F1 team. So this is keep doing. They have been sponsoring a property. C, which is not given, but I would add it as a third option, and that is to maybe not invest here, rather invest in TV commercial. Correct? Before we get into this, are you all familiar with how a Formula One works? Because not everybody is a F1 fan.
I got a chance to attend one, so it's like you have to have two players who will be running the Formula One race from one team, and then they will be assigned certain point. Based on that, they qualify the Grand Prix, which happens across the globe.
How does the business of Formula One? So a lot of people follow it as sports. But
Sponsorship.
if we're talking about sports marketing, we also need to understand the business of sports. How is the sports organized? How does the money flow?
More about sponsorship, sir.
It's sponsorship is one of those elements. So if I look at this, how is F1 organized? So who controls F1? I think it's we have I think it's FIA that controls Formula One. We have a number of teams that come together to take part in a series of F1 races. Right? So all of them they cooperate. We might have typically, let's say, about 10 teams, or we can have what we call as 10, let's say, constructors. I don't know what's the current number. 10 constructors or 10 teams that race for the title. What kind of title do we have? We have a constructor's title, title, right. So each constructor will race with two cars, two drivers who earn points for each race, correct? The first one gets some points, second one gets some points, third one gets some points. And we have a constructor's trophy and a driver's trophy. This will be the sum of all drivers, or this is team points. Team points, and this is individual points. And anybody who is a Formula One fan here? Not really. But this is, and the races are, Amit seems to be a fan, and races are held at different circuits, tracks across the world.
Yeah.
This is fairly a very expensive sports. One thing that you might know is if you looked at the number of people who follow the sports, it is pretty limited as compared to some of the other sports. But if you looked at the advertising costs, the advertising costs are huge. So IPL gets a lot of if you have to air an ad, it is fairly expensive for IPL, but that is driven by the number of people who are watching it. But in Formula One, if you look at the numbers, they do not make sense. The number of people who follow Formula One is pretty limited, but with that, controlling for that, the ad rates are huge. Any guess why is Formula One so expensive for broadcasters and for everybody? Why is the ad rate so high? Any guess? Yes, Tarak.
Usually watched by more affluent people.
Sir,
Clientele
it's
is
an
top notch.
inspirational sport, basically. So that's why the premiumness is there in terms of
Sorry,
ads.
Amit, what did you say? The first word?
It's an aspirational product,
Aspirational product.
sport. So the premiumness is there in the pricing and all.
Mm-hmm. Tarang, you were saying something. You said it's a more affluent sports.
No, I was saying, sir, it's an aspirational.
I said, sir.
All right. So one thing that we realize is that the value of any sports property is driven by what kind of target demographics I'm attracting. If you looked at golf might have still a very narrow demographics who follow it. But then the ad rates for golf is going to be high because they are going to attract people who are quite wealthy. If you look at Formula One, who watches Formula One? You've got people who are typically maybe about mid 20s to maybe about mid 40s, etc. And everybody typically a Formula One, the profile of a F1 fan is that they would have a car. They would have a car and they're often in the market for buying another car. So affluent people who have got expensive taste, and that audience is very tough to capture. They do not watch TV, they are doing something else. But when it comes to Formula One, then they will come and watch that. This demographic does not watch basketball, this demographic does not watch cricket, this demographic does not watch football. And therefore, I realize that if I have to reach out to this demographic, this is the best way. And therefore, whenever you realize that it's pretty important to understand the business model and ask all these questions. Why is Formula One? You realize that in this cohort of roughly about 35 people, you've got hardly 1 or 2 Formula One fans. But if you just check the numbers, the ad rates, or the expensiveness of the broadcasting rights, Formula One is very, very expensive. What the reason behind that? Anyway, how the Formula One works? How does it make money? What are the entities? Yes.
So this is Amit. There are a couple of entities, like promotion is one, wherein around they spend like 30% is what they get it as a revenue. Media rights again around
So we
30.
have FIA. Let's just put into. So we have got FIA. We'll have teams, right? We'll have drivers. We'll have race tracks. Who else? We have sponsors. We have consumers or people who spectators. How does FIA make money?
So race promotion, media rights, sponsorship, TV broadcast, a couple of them I remember. Like they used to get
They
30%
make.
revenue.
Sir, from the bookies?
They won't make money through bookies. So they
Okay.
make money. Number one, they take money from the tracks, the host. So if you are hosting whether if you're doing it in Abu Dhabi or you are doing it in Monaco or you're doing it at any other racetrack, given that they are giving you a license, they'll say, okay, give us so much license fee. So they take money from all these racetracks. They will sell the broadcast rights. They make money from that. Right?
Yeah, even the MotoGP happens at the same track, so they can actually make money from that as well.
They might also have their own sponsorship for the Formula One, the event itself. So we have a IPL, that is IPL gets the IPL when DLF or when it's Pepsi or when it's Tata or anybody else. So that's the money that coming to IPL. The teams will have their own sponsorship, their own rights. And where does this money go to? The dollars go towards, they'll give some money to teams as rewards, organizing the event, and so on.
So even the investment through the car manufacturers.
Now that's a team, a constructor. So the constructor, the teams, how do they make money? Where do they spend the money? So in terms of spend, they spend money on putting a car together. Why I'm spending time on this? Because any business, and you would realize in sports, if you want to understand, and we are not talking about the beauty of sports, but we are talking about the business of sports. We need to understand how does money flow. So any constructor would need to put a car together. They need to pay the driver often. And then how do they make money? Races,
Branding,
sponsors, anything else? Many times even from drivers. Correct? Drivers, how do they make money? From their paychecks from constructor. They might also pay the constructor to race. So it can happen both ways. Many times the team goes out and they say, okay, we are buying, or we are signing up with a particular driver and we'll pay them. Some people, they say when they don't have money, they say, okay, I'm willing to get anybody to drive my car, but they will have to pay us so much money. For example, I don't know how many of you recollect, Narayan Karthikeyan at one point of time, he had to race, and then he was getting his own sponsorship, that he said, okay, I need so many $1 million. So please sponsor me and I'll pay that money to a team and I'll become their driver. So it can happen both ways.
There can be several celebrity investors also invest in certain drivers.
Yes, some of them, they also invest in their own kids who has an aspiration for racing. Right? So they have a person who's not a great driver. It might be their kid, and they say, okay, we pay $10 million, $20 million for a team to hire them as a driver. Right? So drivers also make money from their own sponsorship.
Individual endorsements.
Right? Racetracks, they make money from spectators. Sponsors pay to FIA or to teams. Spectators, ticket or eyeballs. Right? So we need to understand, because anything, and most of this ultimately it boils down to, you need the basic entity that brings money is the consumer, the spectator, whether they go to a stadium or they watch it on the TV. If they watch it on the TV, then the money is generated by either a broadcaster pays. So when I'm watching it, I pay because I am exposed to the ad. And then the sponsor pays because they realize that more people are watching that match, more people are fans of that team, and therefore they realize that I've got a better captive audience. So ultimately, it all boils down to the basic entity that is driving the money is the consumer. Right? So we understand a little bit about the business. Now let's talk about the key question. What do you say? What should we do? How should we evaluate this? Whether and you know, given that it's a dated case, but that does not take away a lot from the case. What should we, whether we should have a purchase or whether we should do a sponsorship? Any guess? Any thoughts on what we should do? One way is to look at page 11 of the case, and I'm looking at page 11, and that is the sponsorship option. We can again look at another question. Why do you think is why is Red Bull so interested in sports?
What I understood from the case is uh, F1 is having a second highest viewership across Europe, right? By doing that, they, if they are buying the team, they'll be able to mark promote their logo on the cars, drivers. There are a lot of places where they can promote their logo.
Right.
Second, the benefit would be they'll create a brand awareness across the world, right? So if we talk about Europe, apart from Europe, even in China and Asia is also the F1 craze is gradually growing. So this will help them to create a brand awareness at mass level. So
But my question is, I'm just taking a step back. My question is, Red Bull, think of it as whether we call it an energy drink or a soft drink, whatever. Why should it be leveraging sports so much?
So
Even if you look at
Professor,
outside.
What I feel is Red Bull is an energy drink, and if we compare F1, right? F1 is again a speed and thrill game. So Red Bull can be co-associated, the energy drink can be co-associated with the sports. That's the only reason why they were uh, keen to get associated with F1. Second, promoter is also having a good liking about F1. So these are the two things which can be going in favor of F1.
Okay. Let me take it from Sakshi. Sakshi, you had a point.
So first is the target audience. From the initial stage, they wanted to cater to the target audience who enjoyed thrill, excitement, and glamour. So one was that. That's the reason they created their own market for energy drinks, which was basically to suit the needs of the people who are into the sports and who are of the athlete mindset to revitalize their body and mind. And that's the reason they choose sports basically.
All right. Right. So, well said. The point that I was trying to make is, and it's more generic marketing. So when we talk about building a brand, I need to talk about two things. I need to build a brand awareness, and I also need to develop a meaning in that brand. When I look at Red Bull, what is the meaning that I want to create? I need to develop an association with energy. I need to develop an association with activity. And that is why if I have a brand, if you look at Colgate, they said this is dentist recommended. I don't know how many of you have seen when Lifebuoy came, they initially in the 70s, 80s, and I've seen some of those old ads, they were again more about active, and they would leverage kabaddi, and they would leverage a hockey, etc., with a Majhar Khan trying and dribbling the ball and trying to hit it in a goal. So it is all about how do I develop association, and these are the kind of association that I want to build for Red Bull. Is that the Red Bull is all about energy and speed and power and all those things, and therefore the best vehicle for me is sports. If you're a soap like Lux, then Formula One or any sports might not be. If it's a beauty brand, then I'm not sure I would rather use sports. So whenever I use a media vehicle, then it aligns much better. If you are doing it on simply being present on TV, it does not create a meaning. But when you are a part of a narrative, you are a part of a story. By being a part of a sports, that it becomes much more ingrained. And that is why Red Bull, in the initial part, invested a lot of money in TV commercials, but gradually they have moved from a traditional advertising campaign. They are actively into extreme sports. They create and they curate events which are all about energy and power and speed, because it aligns so well. You cannot, if you came up with an ad, you realize that you cannot create the same motivation. Secondly, what Sakshi was talking about, we also identify most of the Red Bull consumers are younger. They watch sports which aligns with their lifestyle, and therefore their lifestyle aligns with extreme sports, and their lifestyle also aligns with consumption of Red Bull. And therefore it's not just about association, but also the right targeting. Right. Now the question for us is whether to sponsor or to buy. So I'm stepping away from that. Maybe if they use this money just for pure advertising, it might not be as efficacious. So how do we decide? I can look at page 11, there's a table, and they talk about that the start of 2004 season, the primary sponsorship is shown in table 1. And Ferrari is not available. It is only available in 2006. BMW is available. Honda is available. Saber Petronas is available. Jaguar Racing is available. Jordan Ford is available. Minardi is available. So I can get into one of these sponsorships. Should we go with Minardi? The table also shows the value of the primary sponsorship.
Very less.
It's very less. And what you see is this table has been ordered in terms of their performance in that year. So Ferrari figured at the top, and therefore they are charging a lot. They are charging $86 million. The lower you are, the lesser money you get paid from sponsorship. So your sponsorship, how much you can generate from sponsorship, is totally a function of how well do you perform on the grid. BMW, I'm not sure it aligns because the color scheme, they have a particular color scheme and they do not want to have a Red Bull logo, a red color. They would have, I think the case talks about that it's blue, black, silver, etc. Those are the colors that they want. right? Sauber Petronas, I already have a sponsorship, over 20 million. I can continue that. How should I decide? What are the challenges? Look at what are the challenges. So sponsorship is a status quo question. Let's look at challenges in acquiring or the change from status quo. In buying if I have to buy, in buying the Jaguar team, they already tried buying once the Petronas team, the Sauber Petronas, but that didn't work out because the owners were not willing and they didn't want to acquire them forcefully, though they had a 51% stake. So this is not really a marketing question, but any question for any subject here is more of a common sensical. So what are the challenges? What stops me from acquiring the Jaguar team? How do we evaluate this? Cost?
Sir, it says that if they would have acquired Jaguar team, it would have been called as Jaguar Racing, sponsored by Red Bull. Not like that, but as Jaguar Racing. So that would reduce their brand visibility during the race. Will that be the option of not
So
acquiring
one is
Jaguar?
if I acquired the team earlier, if I'm into sponsorship, the team would still be called Jaguar Racing. I would just be a sponsor. But the benefit is I can rename the team as the Red Bull team.
And even the logo and the color, you can paint it as per, your branding.
Okay. I have more
Kind of
control.
like high visibility.
I have more control. So one is, in terms of the right that I get, I can call it the Red Bull team. So it is not on every time that the team is announced, it will be called the Red Bull team, just like the Benetton team. And therefore the salience is much higher. Salience, visibility is much higher. Just the way that, when we talk about a Pepsi or a DLF IPL, nobody would remember the names of other sponsors. But if you're the title sponsor, then it becomes the recall for that is pretty high. So we had a Barclays Premier League. People remember it. They will not remember any other sponsors. If you are anything below the title sponsor, people forget very soon. I also have more control on the activities. Right. So I know that I'm getting much better leverage. I'm getting a higher visibility. I have more control. But what stops me?
The operating expenses, cost of the engine, which they anyway have to buy from the competition, because they are not the manufacturer.
Correct. So let's evaluate that. Let's evaluate the cost. How much money do you think they will need if they had to invest? We do not have exact numbers, but I think we can work it out. Take a look at what is the money that they have to any team on an average invest in Formula One. Any constructor, what is the expense of maintaining a team?
Around 100 to 100 million pounds.
Annual expense for running and you need to understand that when we are talking about Formula One, this is true for every business. whether it's an IPL or whether it's a Pro Kabaddi League or any other, individuals have a choice whether to acquire a team or to sponsor.
So from $50 million,
So minimum $50 million
Average is
to
281, sir.
$100 million.
Yeah, so 50 million to 500 million.
500 million.
yes.
And therefore, let me take an average number. So the average might be
281, sir.
so 275 million or 280. So average expense is about 280 million. So I need to spend about 280 million in running a team. What are my sources of revenue? How much money do I get? Is the data here
Sub-sponsors or
somewhere? Take a look at Exhibit 6. So Jaguar has an income of $229 million. Will I have the income of $229 million if I'm buying a fresh team? Because some people, they might have come because of Jaguar. Jaguar is an established name. And then if you're getting somebody like a Red Bull, they know that it becomes another minority at the back of the track. I know when I'm sponsoring money, I want to look at the visibility. And I know that Jaguar is known for car racing, or it's known for its cars. So I know that there are going to be fans. So I know that a person who owns a Jaguar car, they are going to be typically a fan of Jaguar. Not every Red Bull drinker might be interested in Formula One, but there's a high chance that anybody who owns an expensive Jaguar, they might be following it. So I've got a captive audience, and that captive audience also attracts sponsors. Whenever there is a new entrant, there's a high chance they might not get the same sponsorship money. So the money that we are talking about, this $229 million, might not materialize in full. How much? How much should we assume? Or a new team such as Red Bull might get how much? Half of this? 70%? 25%? You tell me.
$339 million.
So they are getting 229. Jaguar. How much do you think we will get?
Another $100,000. Yeah.
On top of this?
Sir, for this Ford engine, they'll have to pay, na, because they're not making
So
their
I'm
own.
looking at the revenues. We look at the cost as well.
Okay.
And the cost I've assumed that, I have assumed it as an average cost, so $280 million. So I need to have enough cash to balance this.
So just I wanted to ask one thing. In this Exhibit 6, it says Ford engine, so it says total is 85 million. So they'll have to pay this because they're not making the engine, so they'll be getting this from Ford.
So this is what Ford was paying them for using Ford engines.
Okay.
So Ford was, and if you look at the constructors, I can pay teams to say, okay, use my engine, because then it becomes some kind of sponsorship deal and endorsement deal that Jaguar uses Ford engines. If your team is not doing well, then you have to buy the engine. It's a problem, and that is how life treats us. If we have value, then everybody is happy to sponsor. If you don't have value, then I'll have to buy all. Right? A Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, they don't have to buy bats.
Exactly.
And they can afford to buy bats. Our kids have to buy bats. Right? So,
Hmm.
so these people, Ford is paying, and therefore some of it is going to shrink because Jaguar has been in the business for a few years, and therefore everybody understands that. What should I do? Shall I slash it by 50%? Shall I assume that the cash flow that I'll get is 125, 130, 140, 150? Give me a number.
So considering that they'll be retaining the complete team, I think it should be more or less they'll be able to retain 80 to 90% of these things.
How much? 70, 80, 90? You give me a number,
80%,
I'll use that.
80 to 90%, I think.
Let me check, keep it at about 80. I'll be more conservative because the Ford deal is off now.
Okay.
I'm guessing the Ford deal, they were paying you $85 million, but Ford engines are aligned with Jaguar because you are giving a message to everybody that Ford engines are being used in Jaguar. But when it comes to Red Bull, there's not enough match. So there's a high chance that Red Bull will have, and it's not a big name, it's a new team. For most of the people who do not follow the business side, there's okay, Jaguar team is gone now, and there's a new team, Red Bull. It starts building awareness from scratch. And therefore, you might not get as much visibility. It's a new brand. So you have to create awareness from the scratch. If we had retained the Jaguar name, then the entire fan following of Jaguar would have transferred to Red Bull team.
Exactly.
But you are not maintaining the old brand name. You are bringing in a new brand name, and therefore you do not transfer the fan base. And there are people who follow Formula One. People who follow football, they've been a loyal follower of their teams. A Mohan Bagan player will not support East Bengal or a Mohammedan Sporting. A Manchester United, they hate, even if they lose continuously, they will not support Manchester City. A Barcelona fan will not support Real Madrid. So for people, they are wedded to their teams, and that is why I'm a bit conservative. I'm not sure whether that 229 can materialize. Right? How much should we take?
Sir, in that case, I think it would go below 50%.
Let's keep 50%. Let me keep it at 125 million. I'm saying assume just for our notes. So they are going to spend about $280 million, and their income is 125. The gap is how much? 280 minus 125. I need to pump in $155 million. So Red Bull needs to invest $155 million if they want to acquire Jaguar. And that is the price. This is the price that they might need to pay for being present by name as the Red Bull team. Right? They also get.
Sir, and this is per year basis, sir?
Yes, this is per year. They
For
also get,
for the sponsorship, they are paying 21 million, so that
yes.
makes more sense. Yeah.
So they also get another advantage, and that is the value
addition
of the team. If they do well, then it improves. So if I build an apartment or if I buy an apartment, I might get 3% return from renters and 4% return from the appreciation of the property price. Right? Those are the metrics. I understand. 3%, 4% here. So you get some rental from people who stay in that house, and you also get some money from appreciation. But if I'm only a sponsor, then I have to spend only $20 million. But the net, the question that we have is, and that is what I wanted to bring here. Because initially it is not as obvious. The question that I have is, In terms of investment, it's about $155 million per year for buying the team. Versus $20 million for sponsorship. What else? I'm also getting more control if I buy more salience, more risk. What is risk? If I'm a sponsor, then people do not associate me with the performance of the team. They might, but not as much. The visibility might go down. But if the Red Bull team is the winner, Red Bull team gets all the equity of being a winner. It's okay, Red Bull might be a great drink. They do so well. So I somewhere in my mind, I think of Red Bull as a winner, and that enhances the equity of the brand. And if they're finishing last on the grid, then it also takes away a little bit from the Red Bull brand. So more risk for the brand.
More visibility of the brand because they'll be in
So
sponsorship
more
as well
salience,
as
more visibility. Right. So we have more control, more salience, more visibility, more risk. Also, my entry exit costs. If you look at, if I was getting into a sponsorship, I might have 2-year, 3-year investment, and at any point of time, I can terminate it. And I again draw the same example. If I have rented an apartment, the day I want to move, if I have a transferable job, I want to relocate to another city, I give my landlord a notice of 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, and I'm out. If I have purchased an apartment, then it becomes a huge problem. I'll have to sell that. So Jaguar might be struggling. Who do we sell to? Do we really want to be in that market where I acquire a property? I know that I've got better control, but selling off, exiting at any point of time, and then 20 million is a small sum. 155 million, it becomes a more strategic investment. Yes, Amit.
Hi, sir. So, I would like to share some real-time example. Maybe it correlate. One is a mention in the case wherein the Austrian CEO, Mr. Dietrich, he worked for a company called Blendex, and then he traveled across the globe. So he used to face a lot of jet lag because of traveling. So he drank some sort of like tonic drink, which is nothing but amino acid or carbohydrate or caffeine, which is carbonated. So he collaborated with one of the Thailand person, and then they launched Red Bull as the energy drink. But when I happens to attend the Formula One in India and abroad, at the podium, the people were saying that every racer, who race, they consume some sort of health drink, right, or energy drink or a tonic drink, and at the same time, they'll have to be in the car, straight leg, and they do feel that kind of pain, and it's so the temperature gets so heated, and I think that energy drink plays a very important role. That's how people correlate. Okay, it's because of the energy drink, they performed well, and that has happened with Sebastian Vettel, who won many races as part of the Red Bull team. That's all I wanted.
All right. One thing that my own perspective is, and I've talked to some sportsmen, most of the sportsmen would never take a Red Bull. They consider it highly unhealthy. It has got caffeine. and they stay. But the public perception is a non-sportsman think that a sportsman, they typically drink Red Bull. A sportsman, they stay away from Red Bull. It's harmful. It's pretty common in colleges, at least in our own institute. And I know of kids who say, I take Red Bull and then I put in all these all-nighters. If I have to work on some project or assignment, I take this. But what you're pointing out, and I agree with that, that the association, it is not important that what actually happens, but the association that people build, and the association also builds because you are always present in the sports stadia, and therefore people start thinking that okay, there has to be a meaning in that. Why should a brand be present with sports? Why should it be associated? And you have built that. People start thinking that okay, sportsmen think they get their energy, and if they get their energy, that is why we should also be consuming it. The same story when a Bonvita or a Maltova or all these milk food drinks, they would hire a Kapil Dev and they would hire a Sachin Tendulkar and they would hire a Virat Kohli. And the message that kids get is that these people, they drink Maltova and Bonvita and they become strong and they become, so our brain associates that. And I also want that. Right? One more challenge. We're looking at that entry exit cost. So the point that I make is $20 million might be a money where you can say, okay, I'm invested for a year or two, but here I have invested 155, $160 million. I need to find a buyer if I don't do well. And therefore it is more risky for the brand, both in terms of as the on the performance, as more risky as exit costs are high. I cannot simply exit it. There's another challenge. Expertise. When I'm sponsoring, do I need a lot of expertise? My expertise is limited to paying this, negotiating with them, looking at color scheme, etc. Where will I be present? And that's all. But when I'm looking at expertise in running a F1 team, imagine there's a company that is a soft drink company, and then you are telling them that now you are a soft drink company, a health drink or an energy drink company, and now you have to run a F1 team, and I do not have any expertise. Now what I do is I start another vertical. I acquire people, engineers, assemblers, people who do all this stuff. I need to buy engine, I need to, and therefore my CEO's time, it gets divided. And that's pretty common. Look at Elon Musk. He runs Tesla. He runs the space one. He runs Starlink, and he runs X. And as soon as he acquired X, the share prices of all the other companies came down because people said he cannot manage all these diverse businesses. So looking at an expertise in a totally different domain, can my firm, do I want to make my life as complex? Because sponsorship, these are turnkey. You give it to somebody, but this one, or at least sponsorship is easy. This one is not as difficult to manage because my entire sponsorship is a little bit about just being presence visible. But here I have to do a lot of testing. And this is not cheap. I'm looking at a P&L every year, which is about, I'm talking of 230, 240, 250 million. And that has an impact on my business. You can also take a look at Exhibit 1. What I have in Exhibit 1 it talks about how much money I'm investing in how much money I'm investing on my advertising. On page 4, if you look at page 4 tells you that marketing expenses per year of Red Bull is about 650, I think it's about $650 million. Of that, 20 million on F1, balance on TV, extreme sports. If I acquire Jaguar and do not increase funding, then what happens? The shift is we had a number, roughly say 155 on F1. The new mix, 155 million on F1 and about 500 on others. My entire spending pattern changes. Do I want to risk that? Because it's not just spending money after Red Bull, but it is also about spending money about on other. How much money do I spend? And if it was that was working well, either I put in fresh money. There's another element, and that is, can I convert the fans, followers of Jaguar? And that is important because that impacts sponsorships. If I have got lots of fans and Jaguar, I can safely assume that people who have a Jaguar car, if I go to a sponsor, I'll tell them that look, in US there are so many people who are having a Jaguar, or in UK there are so many people, and therefore Jaguar name, these people are likely to follow this team. But if a Red Bull drinker, does the Red Bull drinker have as much affinity? More number of Red Bull drinkers than people who are Jaguar owners, but do they really identify the same way with the team? Right? So it's something, a feeling of owning the brand. So when it's a Mumbai Indian, the person who is living in Mumbai, they might follow the team. And there are Mumbai Indian fans outside Mumbai. But I'm not sure whether they identify with a Mumbai team as much as versus a person who is either currently living or was born or has moved out of the city. But therefore, the identification with the team is much higher. So can I convert all of these into my own fans? And that's a discussion that I wanted to bring, that as you can see, it's every business question, every design question, I'm staying away from all the marketing jargon. What we have done is, whether it's a sponsorship, etc., we have broken down into the core element that are driving it. And I look at it as a P&L question. How much money will I make? What is the cost and what do I get? 20 million versus say 155 million or 160 million versus getting the control. And now I have to look at my own assumptions. The team will need to tell us what do we do. Any thoughts on what we should do? Would you risk another 135 million for getting all of those? There are some positives, there are some negatives. Or should I play safe?
Risk is profit, so I would take a risk for sure.
All right. Anyone else?
So in this case, what I could get is that by spending this much, they are getting the eyeballs of the audiences of their particular niche. So spending that much, and if their marketing budget is more or less the same, then I'll prefer investing the amount in this.
Yeah, but my marketing budget is another $155 million.
Sir, if I have
If I
sufficient amount of money, resources, then I think I'll take a risk. But if it is low, then no, I won't.
The problem that I have is, while we are being driven by, we do not have enough visibility into that. But ultimately, in terms of the P&L, what we have broken down this is 155 extra and the advantages and disadvantages. But if I have to sit down, I'll have to do a more detailed analysis. I'll have to put it, what is the risk of, what are the chances of me finishing at the top of the grade? And therefore, I'll have to hire, when we're talking about that, 275 is the average spend. I'm sure that the Formula One, the teams that finish at the top of the grade, they invest much more. But the income is also more. Now, it's a chicken and egg story. Unless I spend the money, I will not finish at the top. And unless I finish at the top, I will not get the sponsorship. So the 275 that I'm talking about, there's a chance that might need to be about 300, 400 if you have aspirations. It's just like, if I want to sell more, I'll have to advertise more. And therefore, I need to be, if it is all about my strategy, so this investment in the team is not a tactical decision. Sponsorship can be a more tactical decision. Owning a team is a strategic decision. This will have an implication for next 4 or 5 years, and you cannot exit the next year, or you cannot exit the next after 2 years. I need to put in, I'll have to put in, let's say 150 into 5, and that is something that I'll need to put in in my P&L, that next 5 years I'm going to put in 150 million, and I'll write it off. So anybody who does the right analysis, they will say we are in this game for at least 5 years, and in each of those 5 years, I'm expecting that I lose about 130, 140, 150 million. But maybe from 6th year, I'll start making money. And then they will calculate a net present value of that investment. Am I making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what we have done is we have managed to transform a sports case into a business case. And that is what I like about using a case. While we started more on a sports note, talking about the business of sports, but again, the business of sport, the business part remains, whatever we do. Any guess what they did?
So they moved through sponsorships.
Sorry, Sakshi?
So they went ahead with sponsorships.
They didn't acquire the team?
I don't think so.
They did acquire.
the team. They do have one Red Bull.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in fact, Red Bull has got 2 teams in Formula One currently.
Oh.
But they can't
But
use.
somewhere I was reading that they had a failure in the relationship with Jaguar, and due to some management issues, they had to take their sponsorship back, or sorry, take their acquisition back.
So on date, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure, but they acquired a Red Bull team. I think they at some point of time they did acquire Jaguar, and they acquired another team, but I think that is Arrows. some aero teams. So they own two teams, one by the name of Red Bull and another team under another name. And I think last year, Red Bull was the winner of Formula One constructors title, and they've been doing fairly well because they spent tons of money, and they also, while we talk about the expertise, they had they had a culture of getting into different businesses. So I don't know if the case also talks about the purchasing aircrafts and maintaining an aircraft team where all these that flying wings thing. They own they had kind of a museum, and they would have all these vintage aircrafts, etc., putting up air shows. So it has been their business. They got a person who jumped from the edge of the earth, right?
Yes.
They got, so take them about so many feet high, 15 kilometers above the earth's surface, and getting them, I think 80 kilometers above the earth's surface, and getting them to jump.
Yes, sir.
So they have been, it is all a part of their strategic investment. They say we'll do crazy stuff and we'll spend money. We are a brand that is about power and energy and activity and doing something crazy. And we also, as a company, that's our culture. All right. So at this stage, finally, it comes down to the CEO who says, okay, we'll put in all these numbers. We'll try to do a better risk analysis. I'll get somebody to create different scenarios that if I put in so much money, and I look at, okay, if I invest so much, then what is the rank? And if I invest so much, then what is the expected rank? For people who follow football, they do a sensitivity analysis that if I hire this person, if I sign up this person, the number of goals of the team would increase by the average number of goals increases by 0.1 per match. And if the average number of goals increases by 0.1 per match, how does that impact the chances of my winning the title? And how does the 0.1 per match impact the gate revenue? So they convert everything into dollars. The same stuff that Professor Rajesh has been teaching you, but at a more complex level. So this becomes more an analytics, but in Europe and in US, they've been doing it all the time. So every decision, every question that we face, it has a business sense. When you look at whether there's an EPL player that all their signing up that happens, it is driven a little bit by the performance on the ground, but it has to be justified through the P&L, and how does the signing impact the broadcasting revenue and the gate revenue. All right. Now, one last question that I found pretty interesting. You all remember that the case also talks about signing up the players from US, signing up the driver from US.
Yes, sir.
Right? Why were they doing it?
Because the drink wasn't really F1
Popular in
wasn't
the
really
US.
popular in the US.
Right. So the problem that I have is I'm sponsoring an event, I'm sponsoring a property, and I'm getting a return only from the rest of the universe. US is not really a Formula One market. And unless the sports is popular in US, I will not, I do not get the bang for the buck. And therefore they said we'll get somebody, we'll make the sports popular. So this was, they said, okay, if people start following, if we have an American driver, then there'll be some interest from US. The same study has been followed by multiple sports. Baseball tried to do it. So people who are in the Major League Baseball, they said baseball and cricket are quite popular. India has got a lot of fan following for cricket, but they do not follow baseball. Let's get somebody from India to play in the Major League Baseball. And they started a competition where they got two people from India.
So also like the T20 World Cup is happening in US and
Exactly.
Canada.
Exactly. So
Where
that is where I was
cricket is
telling you.
not popular.
They're just trying to tap another market. NBA, they imported, they signed up Chinese players, and they tried signing up Indian players, not because the Chinese were great and the Indians were great, but they said even if we have them on the bench and get them to play 5 minutes, 10 minutes, the TV audience goes up, and that is how we make money. And the same thing here with T20. The entire idea of taking it to US is primarily a case of getting the league popular in US, and that will have commercial returns. So once the T20 cricket becomes popular, and this is a form that Americans love. Americans will never play a test cricket. They'll follow a 3-hour format is good for them. All right. Any questions here?
Sir, it further says that their budgets would also, they've sponsored different sports as well. So how would they measure other sport versus F1, and how would they decide how much to invest and how to invest?
Now, a tough question. They often curate a lot of events. So some of their events are curated. If you go to YouTube, you'll see a lot of event there. So some of it is they try to do some analytics, look at return for each of these. They might have different segments. So they say, okay, we put in some money in roller skating or some kind of skating or skydiving, etc. So some of it is incremental. They would like to maintain that. The firms would also do a continuous survey in terms of what does their target demographics follow. So if their target demographics is more into skydiving or something else, they would say, let's invest money in this. Right? Shall I move forward?
Sir, is sports
Yes, sir.
marketing a niche marketing?
I would not call it, Sakshi, a niche marketing because the segment size is now pretty huge. And there are lot more followers of sports. The problem is that nobody, at least in India, talks about it. And when I started running a course on sports marketing at Ahmedabad and at Indore. And I've been doing it for last 10, 11 years. And I realized that nobody talks about all these issues. And it is important that we discuss this because some of us are going to land up on the client side. When you are when I'm thinking, and I think what that's a question that Shiven was talking about. I might be looking at a partnership with a sports entity and thinking about whether the brand is looking at whether I should invest money in the sponsorship, and therefore I need to understand how that sponsorship works. What are the risks? Or I could work on the sports side and then say, okay, I need to go to the clients and therefore I need to understand what is the conversation that I should have. And we'll talk about both. Because I want to increase the value of my sports property. I need to understand what is it that they want. Or I could be on the third side. I could even be on the consult side. And so most of the consultancies, I think, whether it's a PwC or a Ernst & Young, etc., some of them they hardly have some expertise. What they do is, if they get into such a consultancy, then they hire people, they consult other experts, and then they compile a report. But the expertise is pretty limited.
And even the interest of the people, actually, what I feel.
Sorry, Sakshi?
Even I feel that people, if they think of sports in India, the first thing which comes to the mind of the people is cricket.
Yes. So, and that is where the problem is. Cricket, often people understand cricket, but they would look at whether Virat Kohli should be the captain or Hardik Pandya should be the captain or Rohit Sharma should be the captain. They don't understand the business.
Yeah.
And when you are talking about business, then people are talking about money, and I need to understand that money part. So the entire cricket becomes so much ingrained within us. So people, they do not look at it from the lens of the money. But any sports, any organized sports, it definitely has to look at it from the lens of the money, that how does the money flow. Alok?
Yes, Professor. Actually, there is a question like this sports marketing is applicable for any kind of product attribute segmentation, or is there any specific associations we can just concern for the sports marketing itself? Like
Right.
it
So
is,
I saw, I think there was some people are having a discussion on the chat. Let's try and address that. My simple answer would be, I need to create a storyline, I need to create a relevance of that category. For some categories, to give a very brief answer, if I'm looking at a mosquito repellent, then how do I connect it with the sports? So if think of a good night, if Good Night is sponsoring a sports property, an IPL team, how do I connect it? And unless I connect it, I do not leverage the brand.
but at the same time now, like we can see there are so many products related to the infrastructures, kind of like construction products item like astral pipes and these all. So they are like actively engaged with any kind of sports events and some branding and endorsement and sponsorship. So just to managing the brands or just to just developing the brand image, actually they are just utilizing the sports marketing or something else.
So, okay. So two aspects. Let's look at it from the perspective of the brand. Often brands need to, when you get into a sports sponsorship or you even need to get into a celebrity endorsement, one thing that I want is a brand awareness. Now, why are we discussing astral pipes here?
Just wanted to understand about this sports marketing, like
Right. But why
so
are
how
we
can we
discussing it? Because if astral pipes would have given a TV ad, none of us
exactly
would be discussing it.
exactly.
But just because they went through that IPL route, the brand awareness is much higher. So they say brand association. I don't care about the brand association, but at least people start noticing the brand. Otherwise, when I go through a TV commercial route or a social media route, nobody cares. So some brand, they say, I don't care about whether the ad is meaningful. I want to be somewhere at the top. Cred was doing it. So I spent tons of money, and I say, what I've done is that because I went through the IPL route, people say, okay, they all these Sadia brands or all these brands like this, they simply say, okay, we IPL has got so much visibility. The brand might not align with the meaning with the IPL as such or with the teams, but it still gives me a visibility and I'll be there.
So
There's
here
another
can we
one.
say, so here can we say like this, that's for the particular customer association. Apart from this association, we can utilize this sports marketing as in building the brand image, as in just managing the brand.
I'll talk about that in a while. But essentially, you have to be very careful about what is my objective. The best ads are the one that not only get us into TV advertise, into the brand awareness, but also brand association. So I might need, if I was advertising for Astral Pipes, I need to find some elements of IPL or some elements of the IPL team. And I would create an advertising narrative that syncs the attribute of the Astral Pipe brand with the attributes of that team.
Right.
Right? And that is a better ad. Otherwise, I'm only leveraging the awareness. So people know, but then they will forget about it. So I need to talk about, and that is where, if you look at an ad like Gillette, Gillette got Rahul Dravid. And why did Gillette get Rahul Dravid? They said, okay, we want something safe. So they were talking about Gillette is a safe blade. It does not give you cuts. It is reliable. And they said, we'll get Rahul Dravid. Aviva. And Aviva, they had a problem when they came to India. They said everybody here says life in LIC is safe. Nobody, and the issue is that nobody goes to a private insurance because they feel that there is no trust. So they had trust in LIC. They didn't have trust in Aviva. So what did Aviva do? They got Sachin Tendulkar. And they said Sachin Tendulkar is the trust of India. Everybody in India trusts Sachin Tendulkar. And therefore, when Sachin Tendulkar recommends Aviva, now at one level, there is no coherent connection between a cricketer and life and an insurance brand. But what they did, they established a connection. Correct? So good ads, they will not only leverage the brand awareness, but they will also try and leverage the brand association. There was a second element to your question, and that is we also see some other brands. For example, Infosys is a sponsor for multiple sports. A lot of B2B brands do that. Why do B2B brands do get into sports sponsorship? Any guess? People might not even have heard the name of those sports, of those brands, because these are B2B brands. And they're getting into sponsorship. And I don't know. I'll show you some of those brands.
Maybe to create the brand awareness.
But how does for a B2B brand, a brand awareness helps? Because I'm not the buyer. Right?
To increase the brand value.
But again, you know, I'm a retail consumer. And this is a B2B brand. Think about it. We'll try and answer that question.
UPI payments, B2B.
So in some cases, etc., it might be useful, but not to the same extent.
Okay.
Think of Infosys. Why should Infosys Infosys get into sponsoring, let's say, Australian Open?
Sir, is it possible that in the future, considering the future, like for example, today's children are going to be citizens of tomorrow, they would be owners of, they could be one of their client in the future, when they grow up and work for those companies and become decision makers. So it is a way of building the brand from start, right?
But then it would be a fairly expensive strategy. That I'm doing a carpet bombing where I could have done a more targeted bombing.
So maybe it is to develop the emotional connect with the larger spectrum of audience so that it becomes more relatable and memorable for the people, and they can.
But that is where I'm arguing. I'm saying that okay, because it's not a B2C brand, you create an affect, you create a liking for me, but I don't buy that brand. Right. So what happens? Alok?
So maybe sometimes the B2B organizations wanted to associate or wanted to connect with the indirect buyers, maybe like the one organization is directly dealing with another one, and maybe they are directly catering to the their buyers, consumers maybe. So in that case, maybe they are just building their brand image in public, in mass.
So I'll take that a bit, but again, we'll explain. For example, think of a brand such as MasterCard or a Visa. When we use a credit card, am I too bothered about using a MasterCard or a Visa?
No.
Right, so I'm not sure. But then I go and I see, okay, there's a FIFA World Cup is being sponsored by Visa. There's some other event that is being sponsored by MasterCard and so on. So why should that happen? Anyway, we'll talk about these.
Sir, is it anywhere connected to brand equity?
We'll talk about it. Right.
So just to highlight, all these stats which we get it's the CRM which software company have actually developed, through which we get to know, the speed they are traveling, and the various health related factors.
So I didn't understand your question.
It was not a question. It was like one of the comment stating that most of the IT company, they develop this software, whether it's related to a cricket or a Formula One race, through which we'll get to know the speed. Let's say in lawn tennis, we'll get to know how speed. Right. So this is one aspect.
Right. So Infosys, etc., and that is what they try and they connect it indirectly. But again, that data. So Infosys, when they talk about they still have to create and a connect with the event, and they would say, okay, we manage their entire digital experience.
Sir, also.
But the problem is, I do not buy the Infosys software. These are corporate that are buying it. So instead of spending so much money on Australian Open, they could have done a one-to-one event with all these clients and tell them. Anyway, let's come to this.
But it also probably, I mean, in hindsight, when Infosys does this, it creates a little more brand recognition and probably indirectly helps in hiring a lot of people, because youngsters are associated with sports. They need young techies. So does it help in?
So maybe hiring process, the top of the mind recall is better. Right? So all these, but there are some other issues that we'll talk about. So what really is sponsorship? I've just put the definition here. Now, while we talk about sponsorship today, it has evolved in various ways. So earlier, the sponsorship was more ego-driven. We had the kings and the jamindars and the landlords, etc. Somebody went and they would say, okay, we are organizing this event. Can you please give us some money to organize this event? It was also philanthropic. Some people said, okay, you do this and I'll give you money. In today's world, it has become a lot of return on investment. But having said that, there's still a bit of ego-driven sponsorship. So when there are individuals who love a particular event, they spend money on that event. For example, Tata acquired a property from Stanchart. So there used to be a Standard Chartered Mumbai Marathon, SCMM. And Stanchart did it for so many years. And then Tata acquired the property. And why did Tata acquire the property? Any guess? What could be a sweetener for Tata if I have to go and convince Tata that, okay, please invest money in this. I'm confident that, okay, I should be able to convince them. I think TCS that was doing it. And the CEO of TCS himself was running a marathon, and every year he comes and he runs the Mumbai Marathon. And therefore, people who run a marathon, who have been running a Mumbai Marathon, it becomes easier for me to convince them. And in a way, it's ego-driven, because you follow a particular sports. Anybody who follows football, they are more likely to do a football sponsorship. Anybody who follows cricket, they would love to do a cricket. Then this award to this cricketer, or this person, right? So how does sponsorship work? It's often a bit of goodwill. I'm trying to gather some goodwill. It also develops associations. And what are those associations? The same thing as we talked about Red Bull, that you are looking at energy and sport, energy and power, etc. And I hope that also comes. So there is a awareness, goodwill, association. There are also studies about classical conditioning, that once you see that sports, immediately you would think about that particular sponsor. There are connections which are built inside the brain, and all these connections. So whenever I see sports, the part that the Red Bull name and football, or Red Bull name and Formula One, they get coded in the same part of the brain. And therefore, whenever I see that event, I think of that brand. This is IOC, International Olympic Committee revenues. And I have the data from 1990s to 2021, the past 7 Olympiads. Look at the first row and the second row and the third row. The first row tells us that the broadcast revenues have almost risen by 3.5 times over 28 years. The bottom row, the total revenues, that has become almost 4 times. But the second one, the second row is the top program. The top program is nothing but it's a sponsorship program. It's called the Olympic Partner Program. And the revenues from sponsorship have almost been 8 to 9 times. Such a huge increase. Most of the football world, most of the sports world, they have been driven, the entire commercialization has been happening from 2 sources. One is the broadcast and the second is the sponsorship. The gate revenues are almost flat. Right. Any questions here? Guys, any questions? Am I audible?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Look at this. We have a brand such as Atos. We have a brand such as Deloitte, Intel. These are not B2C brands. These are all B2B brands. A MasterCard or a Visa. Visa, I would again say that it is more of a B2B brand because Visa does its marketing to either it has got 2 important stakeholders. One is the banks. So you have to convince a ICI, someone else to push your Visa rather than MasterCard. And you might also want to push a retailer to put the POS machine for Visa and not for MasterCard. Samir, you had a point?
Sir, just wanted to ask, Samsung isn't a B2C brand?
Samsung is a B2C brand, but that is what I said. Okay, not all of them here are B2C. Why should Atos, why should a Visa, why should a Deloitte be a Olympic sponsor?
Okay.
So Bridgestone, Omega, Toyota, Samsung, P&G. P&G again, how many people know of P&G brand? They know of the brands from P&G. Correct?
Yes.
Now, why the reason why MasterCard or Visa or some of them do a sponsorship is, to give you a short answer, it is a lot to, there's something that they cannot do a marketing using a traditional approach. How do you talk to your client? I know as a Visa or a MasterCard, I know that I want the time of the CEO from some of these banks and the time is not available. And what do? I sponsor Olympics or I sponsor FIFA and then I invite my guests. I make sure that they land up. I'll get them into the VIP enclosure. So one is it's easy for me to convince all my clients. So all my clients with whoever I work, all these B2B clients, I get them, I do them a favor. And that is the right time for doing business networking. So it's a great way to do business networking. It's a great way to give rewards to my employees and to my partner's employees. I can pass them ticket, I can pass them benefits, I can get them to meet all these stars. And I could never do that. B2B marketing, I send somebody who goes and gives them a pitch, but it's a sales pitch. And what I have done is I have got them to meet all these great stars. and therefore I have been able to get them indebted to me, or I have done them a favor. Yeah, Mr. Mukherjee.
Sir, HSBC has been sponsoring lately a lot of sports competitions. How the bank relates to that?
How do the bank? So they again give the reward to their employees. They give a reward. Again, the same issue with Barclays.
Yeah.
The Premier League
Barclays
sponsorship.
Premier League, yeah, correct.
Yeah. So they get it done because they've got their HNI investors. So their high net worth clients, they get them and they give them a unique experience. Obviously, Barclays is not just a B2B brand, but it's also a B2C brand. Right? So in my eyes, the reason we are talking about Barclays is because I still remember that Barclays was sponsoring EPL.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we talk of sponsorship, we have multiple objectives. We could have corporate objectives, we could have marketing objectives, and we could have media objectives. And it is important to distinguish what are my objectives. What are the corporate objectives? To build a positive public image. Firms get into building a public image. People think that, okay, yes, they are doing sponsorship, and that's all a little bit of CSR. If you are sponsoring the Olympic team, I feel good about it. So if Samsung sponsors Indian Olympic team, I think of it as a positive step. If you're sponsoring a young athlete, I say, okay, they are doing a good job. So they get some kind of a goodwill. I do it as a stakeholder engagement, and that is what I was talking about. You get your B2B clients, you get your B2B partners, and you get them to meet and greet, invite them for a dinner. Nowhere else you will have a one-to-one time, because that's a more professional. When you go to their premises, you are talking business, but here they are off guard, you can do a sales pitch. In those 15 minutes, 20 minutes of time that you have, and the entire day is yours. And that is why a lot of B2B, because B2B does not have too many avenues for marketing as such, at least in a more relaxed environment. It's also a great way of employee connect. The best employees, you can reward them. All right. I might also have marketing objectives. I create or I improve the awareness. Pepsi got into IPL because they wanted to introduce a new flavor. So they brought in a new flavor for Pepsi that bombed. But again, if they had done a traditional advertising versus they said, okay, we'll use IPL as a vehicle. The plan was that each of those 5 years and IPL happens somewhere about in April, May, and that is the peak time for soft drink consumption. And you can align every year, you can launch a new variant of Pepsi, and you've got the rights for the next 5 years. It could help you access the target market. So if I'm sponsoring a motor racing might have a particular market. Cricket might have one market. Football might have another market. Basketball might have a fourth market. In US, whether it's a Major League Soccer or a National Football League, which is the American football, or an NBA or a baseball, each of them have got their. Each of them might have their own their own demographics, and you can target them. It is also easy for me to drive sales. Often, for example, Coke or a Pepsi, when they sponsor, there's also a clause that you can't offer the competing brand in that stadium. So if Coke is sponsoring IPL, only Coke can be served. When MasterCard or Visa are sponsoring some kind of an event, they would even put in the clause in olden days. Now I don't know how it is possible. They would say the tickets can only be purchased through a Visa card or a MasterCard. Competitor's card is not really not allowed. You also build brand perceptions. So brand perceptions, you get a positive effect. If your brand, if you want to buy the hello from the event, for example, Thumbs Up, how does Thumbs Up become a more adventurous drink? Because they create association. They will hire a Akshay Kumar or they will hire a Tiger Shroff, etc. And then they show them doing crazy stuff. What's there in Red Bull? Red Bull is nothing but some caffeine and some soda and some other drinks, but some other components, but some other ingredients. But what I do is I create that impression, and that is the marketing narrative or the marketing story that I build. It's like a young kid, that if you've seen young kids, when they take a tiny plastic toy of Superman in their hand, they start feeling like a Superman, that I am that Superman. And all these brands are nothing but they make us feel good. When a person drinks Thumbs Up, then they taste the thunder. That is coming not from what's inside, but it's coming from what's going inside the brain. And these are just associations that have been built up. The same thing for Red Bull. I'm not sure medically whether if you gave the same drink and gave it by some other name, would it have the same effect? It's more of a placebo effect. It fools our brain into thinking that maybe it is much more energetic. Correct? I don't know whether I'm making sense. I've been surprised, in India, people would give their kids a glass of warm milk with sugar in the night, that okay, once you drink this milk with sugar, you will sleep. And in US, they say, okay, if you drink sugar, then you become much more active. So a little bit of it is science, but a lot of it is also the entire psychological effect. Are we out of time? Well, I'll take this last slide. I know it's your Saturday, and I would not like to infringe in that. So we'll discuss the next few slides in the next session. I can also talk about the media objective. So we generate a lot. We can look at sponsorship as generating visibility, enhancing my ad campaign. So I might have a TV ad campaign, but I might also have another ad campaign which is acting as a multiplier effect when I'm sponsoring something. I also get a lot of free publicity when I sponsor, because people write articles about it. So they will not mention just the IPL, but they might mention a Tata IPL or something else. When we talk about EPL, we talk about the Barclays EPL. So a lot of free publicity, right? So shall we stop here? You all have any questions?
Can we have the PPT, sir?
I'll share the PPT. So what I'll do is I'll share this PPT. We'll continue this PPT. Next, I think we are meeting on Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, we are meeting on a Thursday evening. I will obviously have the recording, so I know it's painful for some of you. Right? Even I hate doing a session on a Thursday evening, but that's a kind of a fait accompli. We'll discuss the PPT, and one request, if you all can, there's a case called Major League Soccer. Right? Any football fans here? I know Mr. Mukherjee is a football fan.
Yes, sir.
Do we have other football fans? Mayank, you are also a fan?
Yes, sir.
Right. So read this case on Major League Soccer. Now, Major League Soccer is the story of how the game evolved in US. Now, football was not the football that which we call football. They call it soccer. For them, the football is American football, which we think of it as similar to rugby.
Yes.
But slightly different. They've got more aggressive rules. So they have got American football, but when they were adopting soccer was more, or the Indian football or the English football, which they call as soccer, was much more popular in Europe. And they said, okay, we will start football and we have to manage a league, because they wanted, and for FIFA it was a big problem. FIFA said the commercial capital of the world is US. People play soccer or football everywhere, but they do not play it in US. So paisa milta nahi. So how do we generate money? We'll have to go to US. And we have to go to US nobody plays football. So they had a decent team, and they said, okay, if you have to, we'll give you the rights to host FIFA World Cup, because once you are a host, your team automatically qualifies. Basically, they were giving them a cheat code of being part of the FIFA World Cup. But then they said you will have to also put a league in process. We will not, because they didn't really have a functional league, a properly functional league. Like we have earlier, we used to have a Santosh Trophy, and then we have a I League. And again, I League was kind of, I League was again in its new avatar, but then now we have got a ISL. So things were changing, but they said you have to put in a league in place, and that is when the Americans, they put in the Major League Soccer. And this story is about what happened with the Major League Soccer, how did they evolve, and the challenges. So we'll talk about it. We use this case to talk a little bit about the organization of the sports league. What are the challenges in developing a sports league? And that will have parallels even for a pro kabaddi league or all these, whether it's a IPL or ISL, etc. So we'll touch upon various facets. So first, for the next session, we'll look at a little bit on this PPT, this slide. Then we'll get into the Major League Soccer, which we use as a hook case for understanding the leagues. All right.
Sure.
So did you all enjoy this experience of using cases? I don't know how many cases you all have gone through.
Multiple cases, and we love it, sir.
All right, because I hate only using PPTs, so I'm not really. I do it at times, but I don't really enjoy it. Right. So the session should be much more interactive rather than me giving you all gyan and you all ignoring it.
This is more real time.
Yes.
So the points that you've typed, we'll get access to that also.
Yes. So I'll share all of those.
Okay.
I'll convert it into a PDF file, and once I convert it into a PDF file, I'll share it with Gaurav, and I'll ask him to share it. It might. Do you all have some kind of a LMS?
Yes, sir.
Learning management system.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So wherever the way you all got the cases, the same way you will get the notes and the PPTs.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. So don't worry about the exams. You will have all the notes, everything, and you will get sitters. All full tosses. Outside the leg stump.
Great.
All right. Thank you. And enjoy it.
Take care.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.